Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Buckets. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already and drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second. It makes a massive difference in how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. It's hot takes, let's get into it. Greg Popovich is half washed as a coach. Half washed. You need to take a longer shower. Still a good mentor probably behind the scenes, but the plays are atrocious. Feels like he's done caring about what happens on the actual court in the actual game. Is he really so great for Wemby, or would he have been 10 years ago? I definitely feel as though Greg Popovich's best X's and O's days may be a little bit behind him, even though the 2014 Spurs, for example, definitely had modern basketball elements to them. They were definitely a team that was taking a lot of three-pointers. I don't know how well he has adjusted to the modern appetites of NBA offenses to the degree that they're at now rather than what they were in 2014. He is getting older. It does make sense to just slowly lose a step at everything. Like, the guy is literally almost getting close to his 80s at this point. I don't know. He's probably still a better coach than most coaches in the league just by virtue of being Greg Popovich. But, you know, there's a reason why no one considers him the best coach in the league today. I don't know if I would describe him as half-washed. That's a weird way to put it, but not as good as he used to be. I can definitely go for that.
Real quick, just want to let you guys know that if you're loving these hot takes but don't get your hot take personally responded to, you can try to do that again by joining the Shoot Around podcast tomorrow live here on the Also Rusty Buckets channel. We don't react to your hot takes every single Thursday, but we are live every single Thursday, more or less. So be sure to do that. Tune into the Shoot Around live on Thursdays here on Also Rusty Buckets, hosted by yours truly, featuring Alex Hoops and the one and only Rusty Buckets. So if you want your hot take responded to, be sure to drop by the chat, and maybe we'll give you a little reaction.
Desmond Bane is a top 5 shooting guard and should be an all-star, even though he probably will not get the votes. Well, the shooting guard position is maybe the weakest one in the NBA right now. It's historically been a fairly weak position, but as of right now, it's definitely quite rough. Like, after Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell, you can kind of go with a handful of names, and if Desmond Bane is one of the 3 after those guys, I don't think that is crazy whatsoever. As for him being an all-star, I feel like that's more likely to happen in a winning season for the Grizzlies, which seems increasingly less likely, and at the very least they will probably not have a winning record by the time the all-star selection's happening. I'd say maybe this time next year we can talk about this when the Timberwolves, or the Grizzlies are really good. I always mix those two up. The Grizzlies are really good and Desmond Bane is the second best player. That's a little bit more likely. Tim Duncan had a legitimate case to be over Magic Johnson in all-time rankings. That 2003 ring does some heavy lifting, plus none of Tim Duncan's cast were as good as Magic's. After Bron and MJ, Duncan deserves to be in the 3rd spot, convos at the very least. Now, first of all, I don't fully understand why you just glossed over Kareem here, because that's who most people have as the 3rd player. Maybe you're going based on my personal rankings, because I do have Magic Johnson 3rd all-time. In terms of their actual ability as basketball players, if you want to argue that Tim Duncan's better than Magic, I think that's fine. I truly think after the top 2 players of all time, from that list onwards to 10, you can kind of mix it up, and I won't think you're too crazy for the most part for those placements based on the guys that we generally consider to be top 10. But yeah, I think I have Tim Duncan like 6th all time on my list. Up to 3 is not that big of a leap based on what my own personal feelings on the all-time lists. I do appreciate you mentioning the 2003 ring though, because I consider that, and I think everyone should consider that, easily the best carry job championship in NBA history. Maybe not the best carry job in total, but in terms of actually winning a title, going all the way with a very not great team, Tim Duncan's the one who's done that the best. So yeah, fair enough. I think that's not the most ridiculous take in the world. Scotty Barnes is an MVP candidate. You know, no, I don't know what else to say. No, obviously not. That's preposterous. He might be an all-star this year. He's been very good. I think he's finally turning a new leaf. I think he's going to prove to be someone who had the potential that people originally projected onto him in his rookie year that they later backtracked on. However, MVP candidate is a stretch and a half, especially because the Raptors just are not going to be good enough for anyone on that team to be in that conversation. The Milwaukee Bucks are not scary at all. I mean, if you're dumb, maybe. If you just are the most reactionary individual of all time, if you're the most short-sighted person ever. The only way that the Bucks are not scary is if Damian Lillard is just washed. And he's not played all that great to start the season, and he is 34. So, there's a chance the Bucks just got wholly unlucky and they traded for Dame, and then Dame immediately fell off. But that's the only way that this is true. Otherwise, if Dame is still Dame, if Giannis is still Giannis, and the supporting pieces are solid, which they are, even if Chris Middleton is a little bit iffy right now, at the end of the day, that is a team you just have to take seriously. Dame and Giannis has to be taken seriously. I don't care how they look in their first couple of regular season games. I even said when I did my predictions for how teams are going to do this year, I said that the Bucks are probably going to struggle out of the gate, probably only be like a 50-something win team rather than like a 60-plus win team like some maybe project on them just based on how good that duo has the potential to be. So I'm really not that surprised by anything that's going on with Milwaukee right now. And I think you are going to feel foolish when the postseason comes around saying shit like that, because that's just being way too invested in the early season. Karl Anthony Towns is entering bust territory. I mean, that sounds like private information for him. If you're talking about basketball though, in terms of being a bust, I do think that there is an argument that he's been disappointing. I don't even think that's an argument. I think that's just true. I mean, he peaked at averaging like 26 and 13 on like great efficiency and being an all-time great shooter as a big man. However, he's definitely not quite been the same the past couple of seasons, and ironically, in a team that has been built around Karl Anthony Towns, he has almost become the odd man out in Minnesota. That's where he plays for now anyways. So yeah, bust, I don't know, because a bust I think has to be a player who never really reached the heights that Karl Anthony Towns did. I think once you've reached that type of height, you no longer are a bust, but you then can become a super disappointing player from there. It's a similar way that I would describe Ben Simmons, although if Ben Simmons is just straight up out of the league by the time his contract is done, then he might end up being in that bust territory. But all NBA level guy, I think Cat maybe was an all NBA guy. I know for sure he was an all-star. So I think Cat's just too good to fully label as a bust, and was too good, but a pretty severe disappointment, that's apt. The Denver Nuggets are as close as you can get to being a super team without being one. I wholeheartedly disagree with this. My category for a super team is you have to have 2 superstars, an all-star, and a decent supporting cast. Doesn't have to be great, but at the very least has to be decent. In the case of the Denver Nuggets, if you want to argue that Jamal Murray is an all-star caliber player who just kind of chills in the regular season, I'll give you that. And maybe Aaron Gordon is an all-star fringe category guy, but we're talking about a superstar, 2 all-stars, and then like 2 really good role players, and then okay, that maybe could be good bench. And I think Aaron is a fringe all-star at best. Jamal Murray hasn't been an all-star yet, but there's a decent chance that will change now after the run that he just went on. But no, they're not a super team. They're just not. Like, all of those guys on that team, besides for are like fringe all-star at best. And that's just, we're not talking about a super team if we're talking about your second best player being a fringe all-star, or your third best player being a fringe all-star. So yeah, hard disagree on that one. Anyways, hot takes are finally back. You're going to be getting these 2 times a week for the foreseeable future. Shout out to Rudy for editing this video, and goodbye.